different ideologies at work here, and there is nothing much that we can find common ground on. Amnesty is one of them. You know, Republicans that have control in the House are not going to support amnesty, and that is the only thing the President and the Democrats in the Senate are going to go for. So, you know, I think at this point, the expectation should be, if you're a Republican, Republicans in the House can stop bad stuff, but they can't turn it around. They can't turn anything around without the help of the Senate and the President, and they're never going to agree with this. So, you know, I guess people would call that gridlock, and while gridlock is not good, for me personally, I always try to see the glass half full as opposed to half empty. For me, after the first 2 years that I spent there, getting rolled every single day, not being allowed open rules on the floor of the House to be able to make a speech or offer an amendment, being walked out of committee rooms, I'll take this over that any day. Is that what I think we have to have a change in Washington if we're going to fix the problems, though. I mean, I will tell you that.
Yeah. Lynn, I've seen a lot of information where we're spending billions and billions of dollars, sending this money to other countries. One example, $770 billion to repair mosques in countries that pretty much hate us and probably are requiring a tax on us. Is there any way you all can ever? It just seems like if we could stop some of that money going to foreign countries, that would really help us a lot.
It really would, and again, it's back to what are the drivers here. Foreign aid is such a small, it's like 1.3% of the budget, so it doesn't get much attention, but it should. I mean, you know, like those gals are saying, everything should be on the table. Exactly. So, yes, those things are going to be cut, they're going to be looked at, but the reason you don't hear about them every day is because they're just such a small portion of the
There are Americans that
Okay, this is change subject, put you off the hook for a minute. Bobby Kennedy Jr. is trying to get the fairness doctrine back in, which is, in fact, is that the conservative radio, media, and everything has to give them free time. They blame it on the conservative media having control of all of the news media, Fox, CBS, ABC, all that stuff, and have frozen them out. So they think they should justify, well, why can't they do like we do? We, by private donation, we support the conservative media, so why don't they by private donation component?
Y'all pay Rush Limbaugh?
What?
I say, do you all contribute to Rush Limbaugh?
I can contribute to conservative media, period.
Well, you and I are going to agree on this. I mean, we are going to fight the fairness doctrine with all that we are. And again, now that you have, you know, a year ago, I would have been far more concerned about it because, again, we were getting rolled every day. And if the Democrats were serious about it, they could have done anything they wanted. They could have, you know, raised taxes. They could have passed the fairness doctrine. You know, if they really were serious about anything, the last 2 years they had unfettered.
So they got to shut us up.
Yeah, so they're not going to get that through the House this year. So I will just try to assure you why I can't guarantee it. It's very unlikely that the Republicans would go for that.
Is there any way to control President Obama's promising money to other countries like the drilling in Brazil?
Yeah.
Well, we can't limit him promising anything, but again, now that we have the House and we see things a little different, we can stop most things. Now, the only caveat I would add to that is, you know, we thought we'd stopped cap and trade, and they just find ways to use the regulators to do what I think should be done in Congress, and that is through legislative authority. Do certain things. So he's gotten very creative at finding ways around the legislative process. Is there a way for him to do that? Golly, I hope not. So he can continue to promise, but when it does come time for cutting checks, he really needs us to sign off on that, and we're just not going to do that.
So it's not a done deal.
Nothing's ever done, no. So we'll keep our eye on the ball. Yeah.
Of your 8 things here, I don't see education listed at all. Is it so small that it's not even worth mentioning? And all I see is across the country, education is getting killed, and the No Child Left Behind Act is still in force. I just wonder why, I mean, I understand that everybody's concerned with the budget, but I don't even see education on here. So my concern is 2014 is looming just 3 years from now, and by that time, we're supposed to have 100% of our children at proficiency. But I don't see anybody, Republicans or Democrats, saying that in 2014, we're going to have our employment rate at 40 hours a week, 100% of all Americans, where on the same track, we're asking educators to do it with less money and bring all children, no matter what their deficits are, no matter mentally handicapped, socially handicapped, unwilling to cooperate. You see, we're not in charge of our product the way the car industry is. And I don't know why we're still faced with that in the educational system when Congress is not faced with giving us 100% of employment at 40 hours a week for every American. Do you see the parallel there?
No, but I'll speak to both of those issues. The reason you don't see education on there is education is to state governments what national security is to the federal government. Our national security is our main function at the federal level, to keep everyone safe. Education has always been the main function of the state government. That's where it's funded. Many of us have championed local control for years. There is not one bureaucrat in Washington that knows what Hayden Jenkins needs at Washburn Rural High School, like the local officials, the local administrators, the teachers, the school board members. I don't want someone in Washington telling Hayden Jenkins what he needs to know for Washburn Rural High School.
So you don't think No Child Left Behind does that?
I am concerned about No Child Left Behind, and we were supposed to reauthorize it, I believe, last Congress, and Pelosi chose not to. She just kicked the can down the road. I mean, if she was opposed to it, I would have thought she would have killed it, but instead she kept it alive. Now, those of us in the House believe there needs to be some major changes to No Child Left Behind if it is going to be extended again. And we have Chairman Klein working on that with folks in the education community to see what we can do to make it more focused on a growth model as opposed to these unrealistic expectations that educators are having to operate under today. So I would expect that discussion this fall. So you will see, I think the federal government, I still think the federal government needs to get their business out of what should be controlled at the state or local level.
And so the monies that you put toward education.
Well, there always comes with, when I was in the state legislature, I never wanted to talk, Jim Ryan was my representative at the time, and it was always an ugly scene when I got on the phone with him, because I would say, why were you passing these unfunded mandates down on us? And where is the money that goes with them? And he'd say, well, the system's broke. We're not going to fund it till we fix it. Well, time has come and gone. Either fix it or fund it. Don't continue to do this. And I don't think the federal government, again, ever does much right. I don't know why we would pass unfunded mandates. I don't know why states would take that bait and try to jump through the hoops that come along with the money. Kansas should want to educate their children the way Kansans know kids need to be educated, and I would put our kids up against any in the world as far as the performance. So I hope you don't see education on the federal list anywhere. If there are some standards that need to be in place, we're going to have that opportunity to discuss it this fall when we talk about No Child Left Behind. But I do want to talk about the unemployment, because we have seen unemployment at this ungodly rate for so long. Something has to be done, and I think if there is a reason to go to the ballot box next year, this is the issue. These policies that are in place today are not working. It's high time we changed course. And what we need to do is remove the 3 barriers to job creation: taxation, regulation, and litigation. And we have legislation before the House of Representatives. Many we've passed already over to the Senate, where they have died an untimely death, to fix all of those things. And until we do that, we are going to continue to see near double-digit unemployment. But we know how to fix it. This isn't rocket science. We just, again, because of the divided government situation, don't have the votes necessary to get this nation back to work. And that should be our number 1 priority. Yeah.
Could you speak about future disabled people? A little bit, maybe?
Well, I think most, while there's this huge rush right now in Washington, especially on the House side, to peel back the federal government, when you pull out your pocket constitution, as I see you have one there, and see what it is the federal government was created to do. The states created the beast, and the beast is off the chain. Plain and simple. It's involved itself in so many things that it never, ever intended, or the framers of the Constitution, I would never intended them to get involved in. So you can't just pull the plug on things overnight. I think that's the view.
That's what worries me.
Well, like a lot of people think you can, I guess I'm more of a realist. That it's taken decades to make the mess. It's going to take just a few years to unwind the mess. But what we're attempting to do is to change the trajectory and get the federal government out of the business that they should not be in, and lay it back at the feet of the state governments, the local governments, all of us. There are things the federal government should be doing that you and I should all be doing as individuals. And at the end of the day, national defense is going to always remain as a high priority, as is building some infrastructure, roads and bridges. And I believe there is always a place for the safety net at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. But again, all of us have to step up and do our part as individuals, as American citizens as well. So I guess I would not be afraid if that is your concern, because I think people are always going to realize the role that the federal government has to play. But more importantly, hopefully it'll be a call to each of us as caring Americans to do our part as well.
So you'd like to shift it to the state, to local?
Where appropriate, and I don't think you can shift the entire burden of a safety net program, no. But I certainly think we have gone the wrong way, not just in that area, but in every area at the federal level.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, hope nobody throws anything at me, but I want to talk about cost and the fact that it's projected that the physicians will take a 29% cut from Medicare as of 12 if something is not done. I realize your statistics that say currently 31% of doctors will not take the Medicare patient. I'm not concerned with our area, because in our local area, a lot of our physicians are integrated with hospitals that are religious institutions. So I'm not concerned about our areas, but there could be parts of the country, if this 29% cut comes in for physicians, they're gonna quit taking any Medicare patients.
Sure.
Not just new ones, they'll cut the other ones off. The other thing is, for rural hospitals, there are a couple of programs that are going away soon. One is called the Medicare Dependent Status, which has been in place since the Balanced Budget Act of '97. That status goes away 9/30/11. So, and what that does is it gives rural hospitals just a little bit of a bump if more than 60% of their discharges are Medicare. So we're going to lose that. And then also, when the outpatient prospective payment system came in August of 2000, there was a provision to help small rural facilities, cancer hospitals, and children's hospitals by making them whole from this outpatient prospective payment system. Cancer hospitals, children's hospitals get to keep that. But rural hospitals, it's going away on 12/31 of this year. So there's 3 things that are going to be very detrimental to the facilities in rural Kansas coming up really soon.
All that you say is true, and a major concern, especially to those of us in rural areas that have, parents that are being served by small local hospitals. I guess I will just say a couple things. The majority of us in the House are still holding out that